in the next few minutes, we shall be talking about the optimal management of ER-positive hormone refractory advanced breast cancers, picking the right strategy for treatment of PIK3CA, hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative advanced breast cancer patients. So it is heartening to see that in our lifetime we have seen armamentarium is really widened in ER-positive disease. Otherwise, few years back it was only HER2 positive disease which is showing a progress. But now, every now and then we are seeing something or other which is adding. So that's really good. Next, please. So PIK3CA is the most commonly mutated gene in hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative advanced breast cancer. Around 40% of the patients with this population, which is hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative, have a PIK3CA mutation, which is really significant, almost half. So patients with PIK3CA mutation face a worse prognosis. Next, please. So the slide is showing that PIK3CA mutations are a common indicator of poor prognosis. In a study wherein the genomic analysis of 649 metastatic breast cancer patients was carried out, the patients with ER-positive disease who have relapsed or progressed during endocrine therapy or less than 12 months after the end of the endocrine in adjuvant context, and also in meta-analysis of 1929 cases of patients with breast cancer who has received prior adjuvant chemotherapy, endocrine or combination. So presence of PIK3 mutation was a negative prognostic factor associated with poor response to therapy and a worse overall prognostic marker in breast cancer. PIK3CA, that's fine. So how to know your patient's PIK3 mutation status, which is really helpful in developing upfront treatment strategies. So PIK3CA mutation have been associated with endocrine therapy resistance and disease progression and poor prognosis. These mutations can lead to cell proliferation, tumorigenesis, indicator of poor prognosis as well as resistance. So knowing your patient's PIK3CA mutational status may inform upfront treatment strategies and response to treatment. Next, please. So alpelisib, it is specifically address the PIK3CA mutations, and this is the new kid on the block, and these tablets are a potent and selective inhibitor of PIK3CA. These mutations may lead to activation of PI3K alpha, key upstream component of the PI3K pathway, and alpelisib inhibits the alpha isoform of PI3K 50 times more potently than other PI3K isoforms, that is beta, gamma, and delta. So it is alpha isoform, predominant inhibition. Alpelisib and fulvestrant work synergistically to inhibit both the PI3K and ER pathway respectively. And targeting PIK3CA mutations may overcome resistance to endocrine-based therapies used in hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative metastatic breast cancer. Next, please. So about the SOLAR-1, which is the first phase 3 trial leading to an approval specifically for advanced breast cancer patients with a PIK3CA mutation. So this was a kind of new signal, and in this randomized double-blind placebo-controlled multi-center phase 3 trial, which is in hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative population, advanced breast cancers, a total of around 572 patients were enrolled, including 341 patients with a PIK3CA mutation. And this trial was designed for cohort with a PIK3CA mutation, and inclusion criteria were essentially postmenopausal women and men as well, who are adult and having hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative disease, advanced disease, and recurrence or progression of breast cancer during or after AI therapy. ECOG performance status good, and PIK3CA mutation identified. So they were randomized to alpelisib versus placebo along with fulvestrant in both the arms, and primary endpoint here was PFS. PFS with a PIK3CA mutation, there was investigator assessment, while secondary endpoints included OS as well and response rates as well, clinical benefit rate and safety issues, including quality of life. Next, please. So in SOLAR-1, 52% of patients with a PIK3CA mutation received alpelisib along with fulvestrant as their first-line treatment, while around 47% received it as their second-line treatment in this setting. So, almost equal, around half. So this is the schema that after neoadjuvant therapy, endocrine therapy, if less than 1 year relapse, first-line endocrine resistant patients, then they would start with this regimen or else if it's more than 1 year and relapse and endocrine therapy for advanced disease, they have already received, including CDK4/6 combination, and then they progress, then also they received the similar kind of treatment. Next, please. So this is the results, and alpelisib plus fulvestrant nearly doubled the median PFS in patients with alpha PIK3CA mutation, which is a very promising signal. So this curves are wide apart and right from the beginning, and we can see that median PFS is around 11 months in comparison to 5.7 months, and that is around 2 times PFS benefit for alpelisib and fulvestrant. So this is the category 1 preferred option in NCCN clinical practice guidelines, and for breast cancer. Next, please. So we can see here that in this these plots that the benefit was all across all subgroups, whether it is a visceral disease, bone only disease, prior CDK4/6 treatment has happened or not, prior chemotherapy has received or not in line of advanced anti-cancer treatments, endocrine status, secondary resistance, primary resistance, and so all across the benefit has been shown. Notably, even the patient who has been exposed to prior CDK4/6 has also shown equal benefit. Next, please. So there are a doubling of the response rates. So in comparison to placebo, which is 16%, 35.7%, and the overall response in all patients with PIK3CA mutation, the upper one was in the measurable disease, while in the lower one was in all patients, around 26, around 27% rather, in comparison to 13%. So doubling here as well. Next, please. So there are responses which are deeper as well with alpelisib. This picture is showing the same. Next, please. So what about the dosing and administration? So recommended dose of alpelisib is 300 milligrams. That is 2 150 milligram film-coated tablets, which can be taken orally once daily with food, and it should be swallowed whole and taken with food at approximately the same time each day. The recommended dose of fulvestrant along with this is 500 milligram, which is administered intramuscularly on days 1, 15, and 29, which is the usual schedule, and afterwards once monthly. The full prescribing information we can refer as needed. So certain ARs may require dose modifications. So starting dose may be 300 milligram once daily, and the first dose reduction would be 250 milligram once daily if required. So that will be 1 200 milligram tablet and 150 milligram tablet. The second dose reduction, 200 milligram once daily, that could be just 1 200 milligram tablet. So dose interruptions may also be required prior to dose reductions. So dose interruptions is a better strategy, and if it doesn't work, then we go for dose reductions. And the alpelisib dose may be reduced in increments of 50 milligrams. If further dose reduction below 200 milligrams is required, the alpelisib is discontinued, and only one dose reduction is permitted for pancreatitis. So the tablet should be continued until disease progression or unacceptable toxicity, which is the standard norm, and it is given along with fulvestrant. Next, please. So about the safety issues. So we know that pan-PIK3CA inhibitors had a lot of toxicity. Fortunately, with the specific isoforms which are inhibiting the alpha isoforms, it is better than those. And still the significant side effects are in the form of gastrointestinal, that is diarrhea, nausea, stomatitis, and vomiting. General disorder like fatigue and weight reduction, metabolic like hyperglycemia and decreased appetite, and skin rash. So these are can you go back to previous slide? Correct. So I want to emphasize that the grade 3-4 complications are definitely especially diarrhea, hyperglycemia, and rash. These are the three most important complications which we should remember, and we should learn to tame these side effects. As we would recall that when we started using everolimus, stomatitis was a major issue, and gradually we really learned how to tame it. So in our old TMH data, we found that when we analyzed our data, stomatitis was not rather that major a problem, rather it was hyperglycemia, because many of our patients are having mass diabetes, and when we give them everolimus, they become frankly diabetic, and those kind of problems we found more. So we have to learn to really manage how the complications. Next, please. So the dose modification management of hyperglycemia, I think this is very important because the large majority of our population is either diabetic or it is mass diabetic, borderline diabetics. So if fasting sugars are more than 160 milligram per deciliter, then the dose adjustment is not really required. There is a mild elevation, and if it is the old hypoglycemic agent can be used like metformin, and we have to titrate according to the sugar levels. If it is 160 to 250 milligram per deciliter, then if fasting blood sugar does not resolve to less than grade 1 within 21 days after anti-diabetic treatment, then we have to reduce one dose level, and we have to start oral anti-diabetic treatment. And if fasting sugars keep rising beyond the MTD of metformin, add an insulin sensitizer like pioglitazone. So if fasting sugars are more than 250 to 500 range, then we have to omit alpelisib, and then if FPG resolve to less than grade 1 within 3 to 5 days, while off alpelisib and metformin, then we can restart alpelisib and reduce by one dose level. However, if FPG does not resolve to less than grade 1 within 21 days after this treatment, we need to permanently discontinue. So that is very important. We have to be very vigilant about these sugar levels, and endocrinologists should have a regular sugar check and rigorous monitoring. So if FPG more than 500, omit alpelisib, and in 24 hours, if grade improves, then follow specific grade recommendations. If FPG is confirmed still at grade 4 in the absence of confounding factors, permanent discontinuation is needed. So we have to be really vigilant about these things. And of course, I would suggest that endocrinologists should be on board for all such management issues. Next, please. So lifestyle and dietary modifications to manage hyperglycemia, those are the standard modifications. We need to counsel them for lifestyle changes as per the American Diabetes Association guidelines, and exercise, weight management, low carbohydrate, high fiber diet, balancing carbohydrate and proteins, limited intake of trans and saturated fats, and the different meals per portion. There are various diets which are suggested for diabetes management. So that all needs to be followed under supervision of endocrinologist and dietitian. Next, please. The only laboratory monitoring is needed for patients on alpelisib for fasting blood sugar and HbA1c, and monitoring should be done prior to and during treatment with alpelisib, and we must optimize blood glucose prior to initiating treatment. In the SOLAR-1 trial, patients with controlled type 2 diabetes and pre-diabetes were included if they had an fasting sugars which is less than or equal to 140 and an HbA1c of less than 6.4%. So these both criteria has to be met. It has to be met. So one must be vigilant for these things. And during treatment with alpelisib in first 2 weeks, fasting blood sugar be done more than 1 time per week, and after first 2 weeks, at least once every 4 weeks, and as indicated. HbA1c should be done prior as well as every 3 months and as clinically indicated. In a patient experiencing hyperglycemia, we must consider consultation with a healthcare provider with expertise in the treatment of hyperglycemia, and counsel patients on lifestyle changes as well as medications. And if a patient experiences hyperglycemia, monitoring of blood glucose and fasting sugars is as clinically indicated, as well as more than 2 times per week until blood glucose or fasting decreases to normal levels. In first 8 weeks, more than 1 time per week, and after that, every 2 weeks and as clinically indicated. So this is also, I think this is the most important complication which has to be, people have to be vigilant and monitor carefully. Next, please. About the rash, so prophylactic management of rash may decrease incidence as well as the severity of rash based on the SOLAR-1 trial. So the Dr. Hugo has shown this that in sub-analysis, occurrence of rash in patients taking alpelisib tablets for fulvestrant who receive prophylactic treatment, which is in the form of antihistaminics, etc., can reduce the rash. So patients who are receiving prophylactic treatment prior to onset of rash, there's no rash experience in 73%, while patients who are not receiving, only in 36% it was not experienced grade 1 or 2 rash, and 15% with prophylaxis, while grade 3 to 4 in 12%. While patients who are not on prophylaxis, grade 3-4 rash 23%, almost doubled than with what was happening with prophylaxis, while grade 1 or 2 rash in 41%, almost nearing half. So I think that using prophylactic measures, including antihistaminics, at initiation or during alpelisib is really important, and it's a small measure which can make things better. Next. About the mutation testing, which is a critical component of hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative advanced breast cancer management. So why we should test? These patients with a PIK3CA mutation face a worse prognosis, and they are eligible for biomarker-driven therapy with alpelisib. So there is a target which is known for a bad prognosis, and this is a tameable target. Now there is a drug available, so that's why we should pursue this test. When to test? Test for PIK3CA mutations when a patient presents with metastasis of breast cancer, and so at the baseline only you can do this test. And some may argue that we are using some different options like CDK4/6 inhibitors or other endocrine therapy options. Then why we should test at that juncture? We may test later also, but because mutations are generally stable, so they don't really change. So upfront testing makes sense. We will be knowing that what is their status, and we are having a plan which is ready either in the first line setting or the second line setting, both, because indications are for both. So PIK3CA mutations can occur in multiple coding regions, most commonly exon 9 and 20. And in fact, 80% of PIK3CA mutations occur in 3 regions, that is E542, E545 in exon 9, and H1047 in exon 20. How should this be done? So it's a Quasar 3 screen, that is a PIK3CA RGQ kit, next generation sequencing, which samples, so tissue and liquid, both, so blood both can be tested, and it is FDA approved 3 screen RGQ kit, which is now available in India. Next, please. So this combination, that is alpelisib plus fulvestrant, is a category 1, that is preferred option and in clinical practice guidelines for breast cancer. And one must assess for PIK3CA mutation as part of initial metastatic breast cancer workup. If all of the following are true, that is the patient has a recurrent or stage 4 disease, tumor is hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative, and considering therapy with alpelisib. So in tumor tissue biopsy, if it is positive for PIK3CA, or if it is a liquid biopsy using circulating tumor DNA and peripheral blood, if it is positive both, there is an indication for using alpelisib along with fulvestrant. Next, please. So to summarize, PIK3CA mutations are present in 40% of hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative advanced breast cancer patients, and indicative of a poor prognosis. Alpelisib tablets specifically targets PIK3CA mutations, and they nearly doubled the progression-free survival in patients with PIK3CA mutation. The median PFS was 11 months for alpelisib plus fulvestrant in comparison to 5.7 months for a placebo plus fulvestrant. Based on investigator-reported results, and more than double the response rates as well. So who had the measurable disease, we have seen that the responses were around 36%, while 16% in placebo. About adverse events, we have seen about the side effects, how to manage them. So there are side effects which are more in comparison to placebo, but they are manageable and reversible. So alpelisib is a biomarker-driven therapy with NCCN category 1 evidence for hormone receptor positive and HER2 negative advanced breast cancer patients with PIK3CA mutation, and this has really widened our armamentarium. So at present, we have options that because the results have shown that even if we reserve it for second line after CDK4/6 inhibitor therapy, then also they have equal benefits. So what Devendra was discussing, although there is an approval for both, but we may use this strategy that we may use it as a second line option because results suggest good results in both the settings. Next, please. I think this is the last slide of mine. So thank you very much. And I'm happy that my